Welcome to November Safety Meeting. This month, we're going to talk about intersections and turns, something that we do every day. So after this training session, you should be able to understand the components of intersection navigation, identify top reasons for intersection crashes, and the do's and don'ts of navigating intersections. Now, most of you are saying, well, I already know how to understand the components of intersection navigation or to identify reason for crashes. I just would encourage you to step back and think, maybe there's something new I can learn today. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's talk about statistics. First of all, these statistics come from the DOT. There's some company or there's some organization that this is what they do. They work on these statistics and they gather data. So at the bottom there of the screen, you can see where it's coming from. So 40% of the estimated 5,811,000 crashes reported in 2008 were intersection-related crashes. Of those, 7,421 were fatal crashes, and 733,000 of those crashes resulted in one or more occupants suffering injuries. Intersections can be one of the most dangerous areas. So I found this interesting picture on the interweb, and if you look closely at it, you can see that the red car that's about to hit the bus was supposed to have a red light, or it did have a red light, and it proceeded to run the red light. Now, looking at a scenario like this, you see that the bus had the right-of-way. We're going to talk about right-of-way here in just a minute. It's interesting, but the bus drivers certainly could have looked around and looked ahead and seen that maybe this car in particular was not going to stop and wait until that intersection was completely cleared before entering into the intersection. So intersections, right-of-way. Let's talk about this for a minute. The law does not give anyone the right-of-way at intersections. It only says that who must yield. Even when one driver is legally required to yield right-of-way, if they fail to do so, the other drivers are still required to stop or yield as necessary to avoid a crash. Never insist on having the right-of-way. It may result in a crash. I know that this is shocking to some people to hear this, but right-of-way is not assumed. Anybody, even if you are not supposed to have the right-of-way, or if you are supposed to, you should be yielding to those who insist on taking it. You need to step up and be the better driver and avoid the collision. So that means if you come to a four-way stop and you come at the same time somebody to your right does, is that how it works? Or to be to your left? Anyway, if you are the person on the right and they should be yielding the right-of-way to you and they don't, and they proceed to go, you need to be the one to yield and to avoid the collision. So take it upon yourself to avoid a collision. So what about pedestrians? They need to be in a crosswalk, right? And if you're making a right-hand turn and you have a pedestrian in a crosswalk, that pedestrian needs to get 3/4 of the way through the crosswalk before you maneuver your turn. Keep those in mind as you see people in crosswalks. Let's now talk about some common yield laws. Drivers turning left must yield to oncoming vehicles going straight ahead. Everyone knows that one, right? If you come to an intersection and you're turning left, you need to wait until oncoming traffic is cleared. Now, this does not mean you should shoot the gap. And by that I mean if you see a small amount of space and a vehicle approaching, just wait. You have no way to tell how fast that vehicle is moving. If you think that you can shoot the gap, you can't. If you know for certain that there's enough space for your vehicle, especially when you are in a 37-foot bus, to get all the way through the gap, if you know for certain, then go ahead and do it. And I say that also with knowing that that vehicle that's approaching isn't going to have to slam on its brakes. If you have caused a vehicle to slam on its brakes, making a left-hand turn, then you did not yield. So keep that in mind. Roundabouts. Drivers entering a circular intersection or a roundabout must yield to the right-of-way to drivers already in the circle. So if you have a vehicle coming at you and you're about to enter the roundabout, you are the one that needs to yield. When two vehicles approach or enter an intersection from different roadways at or about the same time, drivers coming from the left must yield to vehicles coming from the right. I think that one is something that hopefully we've all been taught from the time we were 16 and started driving or earlier. Some more common yield laws. When a vehicle entering a public highway from an alley, private road, or driveway must wait until the main road is clear. I was out doing an evaluation a while ago, not in Meridian. This is before I came to Meridian. And I was with this driver, and he was taking me through the loading zone at the school. And the school was positioned in a neighborhood similar to many of ours. And as we were leaving the school, he proceeded to leave the driveway of the school and just get onto the street. He didn't stop at all. And I said, "What are you doing? This is a driveway. You need to stop." And he said, "Well, there's no stop sign." Well, a driveway or alleyway or private road like that does not have a stop sign is considered an uncontrolled intersection. And as a bus driver, I would hope that you would all stop and pause and look before entering a roadway to make sure that it's clear. Another common yield law is at a four-way stop, all vehicles must stop. The first vehicle to reach the intersection should move forward first. If two vehicles reach the intersection at the same time, the driver on the left yields to the driver on the right. If facing one another, both can proceed with caution, watching for possible turns. Now, if facing one another, you both can proceed. However, if somebody is taking a left-hand turn, the vehicle that's going straight ahead has the right-of-way. Intersection crashes. Let's talk about some common reasons for intersection crashes. False assumption of others' actions. How many times do we think a vehicle is going to do something, but it does something else? We assume that it's going to make a maneuver and it doesn't, or it does a different maneuver. That's a false assumption. Misjudgment of the gap. This is what I was talking about earlier. Don't shoot the gap. It's not worth it. Just wait it out. Misjudgment of other speed. You cannot determine how fast a car is coming at you a lot of times. And the bigger the vehicle, the faster it looks like they're moving. So you really can't tell how fast a vehicle is going unless you have a radar gun or some sort of special Spider-Man ability. Then you can't know this. Another cause is internal distractions. For us as bus drivers, that's a real scenario. We have internal distractions all the time. How many of you sit at an intersection and have your eyes stared up at your loading mirror, your student loading mirror, the whole time? You need to keep those eyes moving. Make sure that you don't have one kiddo distracting you. If you do, make sure you handle it in a safe place. Maybe while you're trying to maneuver a turn isn't the safest time to be telling Jack to sit down. Another reason for intersection crashes is driver error. Just not watching, not following your defensive driving skills. All of these errors can cause a collision. So another reason for intersection crashes, crossing at an intersection with or without traffic light, with or without a crosswalk. So there's a really good example of this. Just yesterday, I had a driver come to me very upset because this driver was heading north on Highway 16 and got to Floating Feather. Another bus was crossing Highway 16 on Floating Feather. This driver told me that they were moving at the speed limit, which is 55. And another one of our buses crossed the intersection there at Floating Feather and Highway 16 with a bus bailing at them at 55 and barely avoided a collision. This driver that came to me was very upset. They were upset that one of their fellow coworkers could be so irresponsible with crossing an intersection and possibly, very, very possibly, causing a two-bus major collision. So there's no reason for this. There's no reason to not just wait. It's irresponsible. It's unprofessional. When I hear things like that, it makes me very disappointed. Another reason for intersection crashes is turning when you don't have a clear view, when your view is obstructed. So maybe you have a tree in the way, maybe there's construction going on. All I can say is when you have a situation like that, the best way to get around it is to, first of all, if you have a light, wait for your light to turn. Inadequate surveillance is another reason for collisions. That means not taking that good look around, not scanning your intersection before going through it, just not paying attention. Inadequate surveillance. And illegal maneuvers. Illegal maneuvers involve turning right on red when it's not clear. I see a lot of that in this area, and not just with bus drivers, although I see it with bus drivers. I see it with cars all the time. just because it's legal to turn right on red does not mean that you should. Last year we had a collision involving a bus driver turning right on red and ended up colliding with a dump truck because they didn't want to wait. And that driver consequently is no longer here for that illegal maneuver. Obstructed views. Let's talk about what can cause obstructed views. It can be internal or external. So windows, windshield obstruction, cracks, dirt, fog, snow, and ice. These are all things that can obstruct your view. Make sure that your windshield is clean of dirt. If it's foggy, defog it with those fans. Snow and ice, wait for that bus to warm up, scrape those windows, brush the snow off, whatever you need to do to make your view non-obstructed. Another example is large obstructions in or near the roadway that block your view. This could be a large semi-truck that you're behind. It could be, like I said, trees near an intersection, anything that blocks your view. It could be your pillars, your posts of your on your bus, the things that hold the windows in place, your mirror brackets, your mirror housings. All of those can be obstructions. The best way to get around those is to rock and roll. Rock and roll, rock and roll. You can see all around that way. So inadequate surveillance, it occurs when the driver is in a situation where he or she is required to look to safely complete a maneuver and neither fails to look in the appropriate place or looks but does not see. I've had 2 collisions this year where I've had drivers tell me that the collision was caused by inadequate surveillance. Both of these drivers said, I didn't look in the right place. One said, if I looked in the right place, I just didn't see the other vehicle. So how do we avoid inadequate surveillance, or what causes that to happen? What can cause a driver to not see potential dangers? Fatigue, complacency, physical issues, distractions, mere use, lack of awareness. All of these are real battles that we all deal with every day. A lot of you work very hard. It's not uncommon to have fatigue if you're not getting adequate rest. Complacency. We're into November. You've been on your routes for a couple months now, a few months, and you could really be becoming complacent. So it's very important to recognize complacency and to fight against it. Keep those eyes moving. That's how you fight complacency, is to constantly see new things. Just look around, see new things on your route. Physical issues. These ones are a little more difficult, especially if you don't know they exist. If you do know that you have a physical issue, make sure that you're prepared to deal with driving while you have a physical issue. And if you're not able to deal with that issue and it's going to cause you to have inadequate surveillance, then maybe you need to reconsider driving. You're going to feel a lot worse if you cause a crash because of it. Distractions. We all know about distractions. Even distractions that you can avoid. Most of you are very good at putting away your cell phone and to know that if you're eating while you're driving, that's a distraction. Things like that. It's the distractions that we can't really control as well, like the students. Um, one thing you can do is if you have kiddos that want to talk to you while you're driving, excuse me, ask them to wait until you get to a stop. Say, I really want to hear your story, but I'm driving right now, so hold on to it. And when we get to the school, tell me. Or when we get to your bus stop, tell me quickly. Things like that. Mirror use or lack of mirror use. Um, there are many, many of you that do not watch your mirror on your right-hand side as you're going around a right-hand turn. And I know this because of the 15 right side collisions we've had this year. If you were watching your right side as you made that right hand turn, you would have seen what was causing what you were going to hit, and hopefully you would have stopped and corrected it. But that right side mirror use is really lacking, and it. I don't know how to get y'all to start looking in your right hand mirror. Please just start looking in your right hand mirror as you're going around corners. Lack of awareness, maybe lack of awareness of your area. Maybe you're new to the area. That can cause inadequate surveillance, especially if something is there and you're not sure it's there. So let's talk about illegal maneuvers. Rushing. Raise your hand if you have ever rushed through a driving maneuver. I know I have. Rushing is dangerous and it causes collisions. Aggressive driving. I have had a few phone calls this year, people telling me that we've got drivers weaving in and out of traffic down Franklin. I understand that when drivers call in or other motorists call in, sometimes it can be a little exaggerated. They're just angry, but sometimes they're valid. They're very valid complaints. And it's really embarrassing to have to tell them, I'm sorry that my driver or our driver is acting this unprofessional. Aggressive driving is illegal. Road rage. Thankfully, I haven't heard of any of our drivers having road rage. Now, I've heard some of you talk about other people having road rage, and that happens. Just make sure that it's not you that's expressing the road rage. Speeding. Zonar tells me every day that buses are speeding. Slow down. There's no need. I have drivers come up to me and they're so excited that they're never late. They say, I'm never late. I've never been late. I'm never late. And I'm thinking, what in the world are you doing to never be late? Ever. To be right on the exact time every time. Are you making illegal maneuvers in order to do this? Make sure that your on-time performance is not due to unsafe driving. Now, I'm hoping that it means that routing has done a fantastic job in making sure that there's enough time in the routes. I really, really hope that that's the case. And I think it probably is. So following too close. I see this a lot, not necessarily with the buses, but just out there on the road. You really need to make sure that you have 4 seconds at least when you're on the surface roads. Now, if you're on the highway, you need 6 seconds. but 4 seconds between you and that vehicle in front of you. And if another vehicle swoops in, just back off and let that vehicle through. Fatigue and drugs and alcohol. There's been so many studies done that show that being tired is just as dangerous, if not more, than drunk driving or buzzed driving. When you're tired, when you're so tired that you are unable to safely maneuver a vehicle, that's a problem. Like I said, adequate rest is so important in this job. We don't work at Walmart where we stock shelves, and if we misplace an item on a shelf, is the worst it's going to get. We're dealing with kids. We're dealing with lives and human beings. So adequate rest is so important. Get to bed early. I know we get up early, and getting to bed early is important. So adequate rest. I bet you came up with a good answer. Intersection navigation do's and don'ts. Watch your speed. When approaching an intersection, keep your vehicle speed under control so you can maneuver or stop quickly. Traveling through an intersection at the speed limit does not mean it is safe to do so. When we go through intersections, we train that you approach the intersection scanning the whole time. And as you get to the intersection, cover your brake. That way, if you need to make a knee-jerk reaction by hitting your brake, it's already there. Accelerating through an intersection is not necessary. Properly communicate. This is that communication that I love so much. Provide enough warning to others by signaling your intentions early. So when you're needing to communicate with another motorist by using your turn signals, make sure that you give that other motorist opportunity to process what your request is. If you turn on your turn signal and they're right at your bumper and you need to make a right-hand maneuver to maybe merge to the right, make sure that you give that motorist sitting at your bumper enough time to get by you, because he's not going to see it. He's not going to see your signal. And the car behind you, maybe there is space, but maybe they're not looking at your taillights. Give them an opportunity to process what you are trying to do before you make the maneuver. Same with turns. If you're going to be making a left-hand turn, start your signal early so others behind you know why you're slowing down, that you will be slowing down to turn left and potentially stopping depending on the situation. Signaling early is very important. So here are some more do's and don'ts of intersection navigation. Maintain visual awareness. As much as possible, stay aware of the constant changing environment around your vehicle while navigating through an intersection. So if you're sitting at a red light and you're waiting for your light to turn, your eyes should be all over the place. Not fixed, stared straight ahead, not constant in your student mirrors. You should be looking around, looking in your side mirrors to see if anybody's approaching the side of your bus, even if it's a bicyclist or a pedestrian. Always be looking around. If you're sitting at the intersection of Meridian Road and Cherry, and you see all those businesses all the way around, and there's crosswalks at that intersection, you never know who's going to be jetting out of one of those businesses to make the crosswalk light. Or maybe whatever the case may be, be looking all around, looking for that motion and that action, and being prepared for it, because you never know who's going to be coming. It seems like out of thin air, but they don't come out of thin air. It's because you didn't see them far enough away, so it looks like it. So constantly be looking all the way around, all over the place. Drive defensively, be alert and be prepared, and try to identify potential hazards before entering an intersection. This is that looking around, getting the big picture of everything around your bus. Don't assume the right of way. When in doubt, let others have the right of way. More intersection do's and don'ts. Remove distractions. Put away distractions and keep your mind on driving. Driving safely, including intersections, require your full attention. I see a lot of people, not a lot, a handful of people sitting at an intersection, filling out their DVIR book or filling out their paperwork. That's a distraction that it's not necessary. It's different if you are a cover driver and have a route sheet and you're looking at your next turn. But those distractions that can be avoided need to be avoided. Don't drive aggressively. Don't run red lights. That means when you're making right-hand turns. Slow down enough to stop during yellow lights. Avoid changing lanes just to speed through an intersection. All of this is considered aggressive driving. Practice patience. Don't pull out in front of oncoming traffic when making right turns. If you do not have enough space to get up to speed without the vehicle that's approaching hitting their brakes, you don't have enough space. A lot of districts require no turns on red lights, no right-hand turns on red lights. And that's because of this. People become impatient. They think, oh, it's legal to turn right on red, so I can do it. Well, it's only legal if you have the space to do it. So make sure that you have the space if you're going to do it. I would love to make it a policy that you don't turn right on red. I think that's the safest way to go. And it might get to that if we have continued people just constantly having other motorists have to slam on their brakes because they turned right on red when they shouldn't have. I've had plenty of you come to me and say, I never turn right on red. And I say, thank you. I would encourage you to make it a personal policy within yourself to not turn right on red. The people behind you, they can wait. Do not let other motorists push you into unsafe actions. That's the worst excuse you can give if you cause a collision. Well, the person behind me was honking their horn. I felt rushed by another motorist. Forget them. They don't matter. What matters is your safe driving. So now we're going to watch a video by Shelly Hall. She is head of safety and training for the company. And she's very smart and she's a great person. And I encourage you to listen to what she has to say. Hopefully it plays. Thank you, STA, for that video. We're going to flip the script here and start talking about cold starts. Cold starts on our buses are going to become very common here very soon. We have a harsh winter here a lot of times in Idaho. It's been a long time since I've been involved with a harsh winter, but I'm going to gear up with the rest of you and get through it. They're cold, they're nasty, they're icy, they're miserable, but it's a part of living here. So, what's the difference between starting our buses in May versus December or January? So we're going to talk about some of that. A lot of you have been through this multiple years in a row. For some of you, though, it is brand new, and you need to know that starting your bus in these sub-freezing temperatures is a little different. So let's talk about that. So starting your bus in below freezing temperatures takes a little more thought and care than in other times. The first thing you want to do as you approach your bus, just like you would any other time of the year, is to look for coolant, oil, or transmission leaks, any fluids below your engine compartment. Before you get into your bus, though, you want to make sure that you unplug it. You do not want to start your bus with it plugged in. Shop has made that clear, and we don't want to damage any of the buses by starting it with it plugged in. So unplug it before you start your bus. So the cold start procedure. Before you even put your key into the ignition, make sure that when you get in and you sit in your seat, you make sure all of your switches are turned to the off position, that you didn't accidentally leave a fan running the night before, maybe left a light on that would have gone off when you turned your key off. All of your switches need to be in the off position. That way, when you turn your key to the on position, it's not drawing undue power that's needed to turn the engine over. So diesel engines have one of the following. On the dash, you have an indicator. It's a wait to start indicator, an intake heater indicator, grid heater, intake air temperature, glow plugs, and a light process. Some buses have multiples of these. So when you turn your key to the on position, you need to wait for all of the indicating lights to go out that are going to go out. Don't start your bus before the lights go out. And that's because you want the circuit to process. You want the computer systems and all of the systems in play to go through their process to kind of warm up. Don't jump their process. So you insert the key into the ignition, you turn it to the right one position, so you turn the ignition on, but you don't crank it. And then you wait at least the minimum of 20 seconds. That's going to allow all of those gauges to do their, their cycle. You want to let those gauges cycle through and allow them to do their thing. And then when that's done, then you can turn it over. But let's talk about why. The manufacturer gives a good recommendation. They encourage you to observe a short wait to start time at startup before cranking, allowing both the gauges to fully sweep. That's that that I just did. The wait to start light to go out, and the malfunction indicator lamp to go out. If this is not observed, the various computer modules may not have an adequate time to complete their initial communication check with each other before starting, possibly causing fault codes and other issues. So when it's this cold out, those systems might take a little bit longer to communicate to each other. So make sure that you leave that key in the on position to wake them up a little bit before you turn it over. So once your indicator light does go out, you can start your engine. Set your high idle and then turn on your defroster and mirror heater if your bus has them. I'm sorry. Make sure that your park brake is set and begin your pre-trip. This says by unplugging your bus. You want to unplug your bus prior to turning on your bus, though. So you want to hang that extension cord up. That's the other thing I want to mention. When you do unplug your bus, don't just throw the extension cord on the ground. Roll it up and hang it nicely so nobody's going to be tripping on it. If we have a person that trips over your extension cord, you're going to be held liable for that person being injured, as well as them being talked to about picking up their feet. You need to hang up your extension cord, so please make sure you do that. In cold weather, be aware of ice and snow that may be present around your bus. This is where your ice cleats come in. If there's ice on the ground and you're not wearing your ice cleats and you're not taking the precautions that we have given you to not fall, there will be disciplinary action. I mean, yes, we're going to make sure that you get the care that you need, but you're also going to be asked why you weren't taking the precaution that you needed to when we give you ice cleats. So also be aware of other bus movement around you. In those dark early mornings, this is where your vest really comes into play. For some of you, you're really good about wearing your vest. For others, for some reason, you think that you're invincible and that you aren't going to be hit by a bus that may not see you because you're not wearing your vest. Again, if you get hit by a vehicle in the lot in the dark early mornings and you're not wearing your safety vest, when you're laying in that hospital bed, I'm going to be standing there saying, man, I hope you're okay, but why weren't you wearing your vest? For those of you that wear it, thank you. For those of you that don't, please wear a vest. The rest of you see how great you can see people when they're wearing a vest. So I don't know why some of you are so resistant to being safe, but please be safe. Scrape your windows as needed during your inspection. I've been informed by the shop that if you need a scraper, they have them in the shop. Please radio shop, let them know that you need a scraper, and then go get one. They will help you out. For those of you that are vertically challenged, I know that I struggle to scrape some of those windows. The best I can say is do your best. At least get your mirrors if you can. Get those scraped off. That really helps. And then just hopefully the defrost will take over from there. Also, I've been informed that the windshield wiper fluid does not freeze. It's methanol. It's not freezable. It will de-ice. So it won't de-ice your windows. It will keep your windows from icing back up. So what you need to do is scrape your windows and then use the windshield wiper fluid to keep your windows from re-icing up in those early mornings. So methanol is highly flammable. Please do not keep it on your bus. If you have any other suggestions on how to de-ice your bus in the early morning, please come and talk to me. I would love to help you guys out to make things easier for you. So after you do your pre-trip, you get on your bus and turn off the high idle switch. Then you can shut your bus down to do your brake check. Make sure though that when you do that, all of your fans and switches are off. So when you go to restart your bus, it will turn on and it's not drawing undue power. So if this procedure is not followed, your engine may not start, and the risk of draining your battery and triggering the engine warning light, you risk that. If you have any questions about these procedures, please contact a trainer or a mechanic or me, or even Rebecca or Paul. They might have some suggestions. But please feel free to come and talk to us if you have any questions regarding any of this. Let's take a minute and talk about the new traffic light on Franklin. We have been getting many calls from motorists complaining that buses are cutting them off on Franklin, and I know it's hard to get out. I know it's difficult. I know a lot of you shoot that gap when you probably shouldn't, just to stay on schedule, which you shouldn't. But we have a traffic light and we have permission to use it. So as you're leaving the yard and you go out that western side, that drive, go ahead and make that right-hand turn. Make sure you stop at the stop sign. Don't be blowing that stop sign. Take that left and go up to the traffic light. It's going to be very beneficial to us to be able to get out onto Franklin safely without cutting people off, without making other autos slam on their brakes. Even if you enter into that center lane, a lot of nervous drivers think that we're gonna, they don't realize that we're just going to that center lane, and they think that we're merging into traffic when they're in the lane, which I know none of you would do. So let's use the traffic light. They put it there. We have permission to use it. So use it. Let's be grateful for this opportunity to safely get out onto Franklin. I want to wrap up the meeting by talking about some of the basics of safety. Just a refresher for most of us. So we all have heard that safety is the absence of risk. If we lessen our risk taking, the safer we are, right? If you don't bungee jump off a bridge, you're less likely to hit the ground and die. So that absence of risk, that's a pretty extreme example, but it's kind of a funny one. If we identify risks and eliminate them from our daily operations, then we eliminate the potential for accidents and injuries. Kind of like the bungee jumping example I just gave. Safety is a choice. You make that choice every day. Be a determined professional by never choosing the easier, quicker, and riskier way of operating a vehicle by speeding to save time, taking the right of way, and unnecessary backing or maneuvering into tight spaces. These are all choices that we take. So if you eliminate the risk and you make the safer choice, the less likely you are to have an accident. In the course of any bus run, your route, you are forced to make thousands of driving decisions. If an operator is willing to take risks and make unsafe decisions, it follows that eventually one of these decisions will lead to an accident. I can guarantee that the people that have been in accidents it wasn't their first time making that maneuver unsafely. It was they probably did it 100 times before and it was never a problem. It's rarely the first time. It's kind of like if you for a criminal, if a person shoplifts, they're not likely to get caught the first time. If somebody's caught shoplifting, it's likely several times that they've done it and gotten away with it. So it's the same with your risk driving. If you choose a risk over and over and over again, you're not likely going to have an incident the first time that you do it. However, it will catch up with you. So 3 things to remember. If in doubt, don't. Not making a bad choice equals no accident. Don't let another motorist force you into an unsafe driving decision. If you have somebody behind you that's honking their horn because you're not feeling safe making a right on a red, don't let that person force you into making a right on red. You have the choice. I would much rather take a phone call from a person saying your driver was sitting on a red light when I was trying to turn right than have that same another person call and say that you cut them off making a right on a red. And if I talk to you about it and you say that, well, I did it because the car behind me was, on my bumper or honking their horn, I'm going to look at you like, what the heck, Don't let other people force you into these situations. Be the captain of your ship. It's always okay to stop, to put on your four-ways, and to call for assistance. That's always an option. Nobody will ever fault you for stopping, putting on your hazards, and calling for help. That is always going to be an option. So don't forget that when you're out there and you're flustered and you're frustrated, it's always an option, and nobody is going to give you grief for that. If somebody gives you grief for that, you come and talk to me and I'll put the smack down. But seriously, always consider that as an option. A recap on yielding. Nobody ever yielded their way into a collision. Remember that one. If you're in doubt, yield the right of way. Take the high road. Give other people the opportunity to move before you. In a yield situation, the only thing that really matters is a safe outcome. Be that safe outcome. Be that the safer person. You are the professional. Be that safer professional on the road. And we're going to wrap it up by talking about some space management. The SEAT system of space management. Search, evaluate, execute in time. When you allow yourself time to process a hazard and evaluate a situation, it gives you the time to execute a safe maneuver, an escape plan. So if you're 15 seconds ahead and you see a hazard 15 seconds ahead, that 15 seconds is enough time to safely maneuver around it. So actively search your intended path of travel for traffic hazards. This also means if you're going to turn onto a street, when you're turning left or right and you look 15 seconds ahead down that street, it gives you time to recognize a hazard. If you are turning and you see 15 seconds ahead on the street that you're turning onto that the road is closed ahead, you're going to have the opportunity to not turn down that street. There was a time when it was when I was in Oregon driving. I was looking 15 seconds ahead, and there was a traffic light 15 seconds ahead. It was probably a good half a mile, maybe, I don't know, more than a quarter mile, maybe less than a half a mile. And there was a traffic light ahead, and up I had seen a semi truck that was stalled in the middle of the intersection, and traffic was just piling up. And I was looking ahead, and I noticed that 3 of our other buses were stuck in this line of traffic, and I knew that I was going to be stuck if I continued on that path. What that allowed for me to do was to maneuver around it. I had another road that I could turn down in order to loop around the block and get going the other direction, and then around that particular intersection. Now, it took me a little longer than it would have had I gone through the intersection without a semi truck stuck in it. However, those other buses were stuck there because of the semi truck, like 15 to 20 minutes. We were heading to our schools, our afternoon pickups, and I made it to my school in time because you know, when you leave, you have a few extra minutes to get there, and I made it to my school on time, and those other buses were really late to their afternoon routes. And had they looked 15 seconds ahead, they would have been able to maneuver the same way I did. But because they didn't, they were stuck. So it really does save time to be looking ahead. Also looking all the way around your bus all the time. Manage your space 360 degrees around your bus. If you have a car that's pacing you, slow down a little and let them get ahead of you. Manage your space. You have that control. And give yourself time to safely avoid traffic hazards. So that's all I have for you for the November safety meeting. You guys are all amazing. Keep up the good work. Come and talk to me if you have any concerns or issues. I know a lot of you do that, and I appreciate it. And I hope you feel like you're heard by me. I really do try to acknowledge your concerns and to handle them accordingly. I know sometimes some of you come to me with concerns, and I can't really discuss the specific outcomes of those, especially if it involves another operator. You know, we do have confidentiality, but please know that you're heard, and we want to hear you. So please come and talk to me when you have a safety concern. I appreciate it. Also, writing it down. A lot of you have gotten that response from me. Please write up an incident report. That's going to always be there because I can take that, and if I have something immediately on my plate, I can get to it in 10 or 15 minutes and not forget what you have just talked to me about. So keep it up. You guys are awesome. We appreciate all that you do, and have a great Thanksgiving if you see this before Thanksgiving. Bye.